Wait,
Uh,
Kyla, Janelle, were you guys the ones who found the dog face of John? Are you the ones who started that meme? Is that what he's alluding to?
No.
No, that sounds hipper than I could be.
Oh,
What is
I
the
think
dog?
everybody needs to see this, John, now that you brought it
no.
up.
I won't enable screen sharing for Justin.
I'll just put it in the chat, don't worry.
Okay.
Justin, please don't.
It's really hard to find now because it's so buried.
Okay, let's get started. Justin, we didn't talk about who was doing the intros. Unless you asked me to do the intros and I forgot.
I did.
You did? You asked me to do the intros? Okay. Well, you all read about Tyler and Janelle's how Tyler got his BFA. I want to say, I'm guessing 2014, Tyler.
Right.
And Janelle, I'm not gonna be able to guess 2015 or 2016.
No, also 2014.
It was also 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I really thought it was a year later. Okay, so Janelle came to VCU with a BFA in photography, came to do the MFA in photography and film. And Tyler was here doing his BFA in photo and film, but on the filmmaking track. And so after they graduated, Tyler, you went on to do, I know you were working in kind of video and media and multimedia marketing for a company. And Janelle, you were working at 1708 for a while and kind of in the nonprofit gallery space, but also continuing to, both of you kind of continuing to do your own work. And then at a certain point, you decided to bring your shared knowledge and expertise of these various spaces, marketing and nonprofit and production, and begin this production company, Departure Point Films. So we're so thrilled to have you back. I had you both as students and now I consider you friends, and I love to see you socially, and I look forward to doing that in person again. And we're just delighted to have you here kind of sharing your knowledge. We shared questions in advance. So I think I'll just turn it over to you. And then if other people want to drop questions in the chat, I'll keep an eye on those and you know, add them to the mix if we have time.
Wonderful. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, thank you everyone for having us, of course. And thank you for putting this together. We took all the questions that we got from you, Sasha, in both emails, and we have our Google sheet right here with all of them. So
Cool.
we'll more or less answer them in the order that you put them in that email. But like you said, if anyone else has anything or wants clarification on an answer, then we can talk about any of them ad infinitum. So, but yeah, you very aptly described our history. I mean, if it's worth mentioning, maybe only because we're sitting this close and that normally is a no-no, we are also married. We dated and then became married, you know, as we met in the program. So we lived together. So that's why this is kosher, more or less. So yeah, like Sasha said, you know, we both came out of the film program and started this business. And, you know, a lot of people often ask, like, what's that like? And was it scary to start the business? And I think the first thing that we always tell folks is that we always approached that move into starting our own business in like a only make the jump when it feels basically like not a jump. You know, we were both in our different industries. Again, Janelle, gallery coordination and just kind of the fine art world. And I was doing marketing for a company that sold a very particular tool to like power plants that needed to measure things that go on in their facility. It was very technical, but the videos they needed to be a little bit more educational. So anyway, we both were growing frustrated with our separate jobs and industries. At the same time, people who knew us in college and then after graduation would occasionally reach out to us and say like, hey, like, whatever, VCU admissions needs a video done. Could you do something like that? And so we started taking on these little gigs here and there, you know, occasionally while we were in school, but then definitely after school. And it worked out that as we were working at our separate jobs, we got enough of those calls where it became something where we had to kind of ask ourselves like, well, do we want to do more of these? Because they snowballed, where we would do one good job and then someone would see it. And, you know, we weren't charging a ton back then. And so we kind of had a little bit of a reputation as like the people who could do good work for an affordable price. And so it got to the point where we both at separate points, only a few months apart from each other, had to cut down to part-time at our separate jobs to make room for these independent gigs we were getting. And then it was around, you know, March, April, May-ish of 2016.
March.
Yeah, where we decided, you know, we wanted to incorporate as a business and leave 1708 and the company I was working at respectively. And that's when the business started.
So I've been doing this full time for a little over 4 years now. Yeah, originally we were essentially sole proprietors. So like Tyler would do work as Tyler Kirby, I would do work as Janelle Prue. Even though we were working together, we weren't like a formal business. And so we'll talk a little bit about like what that entailed, was like making the switch from doing work like as like, you know, independent contractors, essentially, with like having to put aside 20% for taxes because you get that bill at the end of the year and you don't want to be surprised by it, to like being a more like formal business. Like we have a payroll now, and all that, and like, you know, could hire employees if we want to or get to that point.
Yeah, but I suppose that kind of sums up, I mean, maybe the biggest lesson that I know differs our story from a lot of people that I know had tried to do this. And that's like, you know, we took a very gradual approach to starting the business. We didn't get out of college, cut ties with whatever money-making apparatus we were involved in, whether it was jobs at the gallery or a part-time gig. You know, it was all very gradual because it's just risk management. You know, there's no need to not work. I mean, I think I probably spent a borderline illegal amount of time at my other job working on my what were then personal projects. But either way, as long as it's not affecting your work there's no reason to quit your job until you're like ready and you know that you'll have money coming in the next day, kind of thing. So I guess that's just the first piece of advice to give everyone is, I know a lot of people are like, I'm getting out of college and I'm going to New York and I don't know a single person there and I don't have any savings and that's how it's going to be. And it works for some people. I don't recommend that though. And that's what we didn't do. And that's why we never were without a salary, you know, and it worked because we managed our risk. So.
And I think we're going to kick this off sort of with a tour of our office, but I wanted to, before we do that, mention that we started out also like with that sort of gradual taking on of the business. We also did that in terms of our space. So like we started in one room of our house. It got really cramped really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a friend who's a photographer who asked us if we wanted to go in on an office space with her. Like I think we started in March 2016. She started talking to us in like October 2016, and we were like, man, it feels really risky to like have a bill essentially to have to pay.
An additional one, yeah.
But we were like, all of our stuff isn't fitting in this room anymore, and so we decided to take that risk of splitting an office space with her. So we did that for 2 years, and then the previous 2 years we moved to the space that we're currently in now. So we didn't like jump into the space right away. This was like a growth for us to get to here.
Right. So yeah, we'll show you around here, and you know, it works for us now. I mean, already we're starting to feel the edges of this space, but actually, if you want to grab the iPad, I'll shut the audio and video down here to transition that. So I don't know where Janelle is in this mosaic that I'm seeing, but look for the one that says Janelle. That's going to be the camera that walks away to the office.
You can also change your view settings so that it highlights the speaker. So if you do that, then you'll see Janelle's, that'll allow you to see Janelle's screen big, so you get more of a sense of the space.
So Janelle, you want to bring that in here real quick?
What's that?
If you come in here, I'll mute and kill this.
Okay, I'm in my walk mode now.
It's a multi-cam experience, and I'm talking.
Yes.
I'm going to mute this. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's working. It looks great.
There we go. So now there should be no error, right? That's all muted.
Yeah.
Okay. So now Janelle's Steadicam operator on this one. So.
Oh, this is cool.
So you're seeing our primary workspace. Again, it is just Janelle and I. We're the only two primary partners at the company. You know, we don't have any other employees as of yet. So these are our two workstations. This is a desk we actually had a friend of ours build for us and trade for a project. And it's a custom piece. So we have two workstations. We have our computer, my computer and Janelle's computer there with like a power supply.
Yeah, if you're curious to see more of our technical setup, I can get down and
We got
show
the new
you.
Mac Pro, which is doing pretty well.
This is a really important piece of equipment we didn't think about till we had a business, and it's like a backup battery. Like if the power surges or goes out, it keeps our computers from failing.
And it's a power conditioner, you know, so it cleans up the sometimes dirty power that comes in. It sounds like a political term, but I just literally mean dirty AC power. Closes. So that's client view.
Yeah.
We have a TV there if we ever need to screen something. We got a cat named Marge, and she has to come in today because we have a contractor at our house.
And then windows. Our old office did not have exterior windows, so that was a big deal for us.
with the new space.
This is always fun to do if I can get it done quick enough.
We don't move away.
That and then just slide open to Main Street,
Marge is very interested.
takeout and tacos and stuff.
Wow.
That's the aesthetic pleasantries of the office. And then in the back room, we have our kind of like storage and equipment space. So we've set up a couple of things to show y'all, but if you want to flip to the shelf, so like this is all of our crap. We've got boxes because we keep all of our boxes because you'd be surprised. I mean, between Adorama, B&H, and then the local kind of Facebook marketplace market, we've sold almost anything that we kind of, you know, drop out of circulation. So, you know, we have old cameras, old lenses, keyboards. I mean, we just sold an old computer. We're trying to find a home for this old monitor here. All that stuff, we usually sell it, or, you know, and the box is a big part of that. So I recommend keeping boxes for things you want to sell one day. All of our bags, a bunch of Pelicans. This is something we just had our IT guy set up for us, which is a server. So Janelle and I can work on the same projects at the same time, or, you know, we don't have to swap hard drives. So it's a big 80 terabyte monster drive that gets split up and goes through the wall to our computer so that we can work on things at the same time. And then that gets backed up to two redundant drives and then also up to the cloud so that we never can lose anything.
Yeah.
Because we had a flood in our old office and we almost lost some data, but thankfully we had backups.
And insurance.
And insurance to help pay for it. So I don't know, I'm glossing over a lot of this, but I mean, I'll tell you now, maybe one of my biggest duties, just as the person who is kind of the tech guy, in addition to making the videos with Janelle, is also, is data management. And I think it's on the question sheet as what's something that you can get started doing now that'll pay off for years to come. And that would be getting some kind of system set up, even if it's modest, for your project and project management and just how you store your files, because only when it is too late will you think about doing that if you don't start now, and then by then it is too late. You'll be in the middle of 3 projects all of a sudden if you're lucky, and then, you know, you'll be stumbling over yourself trying to find files and things like that. So you know, we have a system, everyone kind of has their own system. For us, you know, we have all these projects with these clients, and clients will occasionally come back to us and be like, you know, hey, do you have that footage from whatever? Can we make a new video out of that? There's a lot of things to consider there about licensing and the rights of that footage, whether you hold on to the rights of the footage when you shoot, or whether the client technically owns it. Since our arrangement with every client that we work with, unless they specifically pay for it otherwise, is they get the finished file, we keep the original footage because that's our kind of tools. They get the finished piece because that's what they contract us for. So with that in mind, we keep all the original footage here on archive for at least a couple of years. So we have, it's kind of messy right now, but you can see we just have drives and drives and drives. Each one of these is 4 or 8 terabytes. And I have a very complex database software that kind of keeps track of where every project is. So if a client says, like, back in 2014, you know, 16, where was that shoot from some place, you know, I can be like, oh, I know that's duplicated in 18A and B. And so I can pull those drives, pop them in the little toaster oven thing that stores drives. And then I have that footage.
Yeah.
And then we have a system. You should spin up your drives every 3 years, if that matters to anyone. Shouldn't let them sit there for more than 3 years without turning them on. Otherwise they can decay.
Just be dead.
So,
and then this is all of our like grip gear back here. So stands, soft boxes, tripods, like travel case, some old stuff that we need to get rid of.
We need to install more racks too. So we've got back there, actually, I was going to talk about that. So this whole space, maybe we could show them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, normally it's storage and prep areas. On a couple of occasions, and I mean, if John Fryer is on this call, he'll know, we can convert this into a small usable studio space for like interviews. And so that's what we've done, especially in COVID times. You know, we've had to kind of limit our on-location filming, and instead we sanitize this whole area and can bring in people for, you know, single person at a time interviews. So that's what we recently did for a project. We cleared all this out. We moved the cart and we moved the little mini kitchen out into the front, kind of hollowed out the space. And then we have stands and these colored seamless paper backdrops from Savage that I'm sure you all have worked with.
Yeah, they have them in the lighting studio at the department.
And so we bought a whole bevy of these. We got orange and blue and red, all that. And we, set up a rotating backdrop and would have interviewees come in. They were from different schools, so we matched the color to their school colors and could do interviews in here and then, kind of shuttle them in and out without cross-contamination. So all in all, and then we got a bathroom. We didn't have our own bathroom at the last place we were in. It was a kind of a shared situation. So this is nice.
Made it much easier to work here with COVID.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to kind of feel so icky.
Someone had a question. They said that they saw on our website that we write about how we work with light gear, which I think they meant like physically not heavy or like nimble.
Oh,
And so I was thinking now might be a good time to show you some of the stuff that we use regularly, since like I can actually physically show it to you.
yeah.
So we shoot on C200s primarily, which is like a documentary Canon camera. It's nice. It has built-in NDs, which is something we've come to favor considerably. And so, yeah, that's like a really typical setup for us, is like an external monitor on top, and then the rest of it's pretty much in the camera.
It's got, audio input. So if we have to attach a mic to it, we can, or run audio into it. It's got a little handle that can flip. All this stuff is articulating. It's a lot of different things that we've added to our cameras and found that we need is kind of trial and error. And so that's really the only way to do it. I mean, you can research a lot of it, but we rented some cameras before. We tried it. This is like our fourth. We did Sony A7S Mark II as our first cameras. Then we had a couple of Blackmagic products, the Ursa Mini and their other little teeny pocket camera before the one that is out now, like the Micro. And then these. And so we kind of figured out like the A7S II had color issues that we weren't happy with. The Blackmagic cameras were a little too bulky and just clunky, and they're, whatever. That was their problem.
I mean, ultimately, we were making a lot of the early camera decisions based on budgetary needs for us.
Right.
We did not have the money to buy a C200, so we were finding out what we could buy to make work. And so it took us a while to get to the point of buying this one and the second one. But we found it was really helpful to have a matching set for color correction later. But it did take us a while to financially get to the point of affording these.
Yeah, it was, it's significant to own both of these.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, they match color, and we've kind of decked them out so that they work the way we work. And so I guess, at any point, if anyone has questions about a specific piece of this, because I know when we've done these tours before, people usually ask about equipment, we can talk about it. So I don't know, is the audio on? Can you hear that?
Most people are muted,
Okay,
but
cool.
the chat is open. So I can look at the chat if anyone has specific gear questions.
Okay, cool.
But this is also a really lightweight, like carbon fiber tripod that we found, I say we, Tyler heavily researched and found it. He's our gear wrangler and researcher. And so it's really nice because it's easy to operate as one person. We were finding we were having problems like changing heights solo with the camera attached. But this is like super easy with the paddle mechanism to unlock it from the top. So we like this a lot. It's made by Sachtler. It's like Sachtler. I think they're German. Definitely German. One question was, did you buy all this equipment outright? Over how much time did you collect so much stuff? I mean, this is all definitely like 4 years of accumulation, but ultimately we financed all of our equipment in the beginning with like 0% APR credit cards that had 0% due within the first 12 months, and then we would just slowly pay it off within that period of time, so that we never had to pay interest on anything.
Yeah, we treated those cards like they were loans, that didn't have interest. So those are, I guess, as long as you feel like you know what you're doing when you're signing up for those things, I would recommend that, because it's literally easier than, we never took out a loan from a bank because we didn't want to do that because you pay interest. So credit cards were a good option.
Yeah. Someone else said, what was your general rule when it came to what was necessary to get first? Tyler, I think someone else had a question about like what gear to buy in the beginning. And I think for us, like having at least one camera was a big deal, but also one of the very first things we bought was actually a cart.
Oh, yeah. Rest in pieces.
Yeah, it's not here anymore because we eventually got heavy enough that we broke it, but now we have this big, huge guy, which packs up quite small actually to fit in the car. We have a minivan now that fits a lot of this gear for trips. But we had a Rock and Roller brand cart for a long time that we had kitted out with some bags on the ends for stands. And that lasted us a really long time. And it made our life a lot easier getting in and out of locations, because almost all of our filming is on location. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in general, you know, building up equipment is certainly the way to do it. And I mean, most of our stuff here, I mean, especially the most expensive things, I mean, the cameras are over a years old. Lenses really kind of hold up their value pretty strong. I don't know. And honestly, it looks like we have more equipment than we do. Really,
A lot
like,
of this is empty bags.
These are all empty bags just because we like to keep an assortment of empty containers, because then we can repack for the job. So like only the Pelicans are full of stuff, and even this bottom one isn't.
And one of these isn't.
Right. So it's like, it's just a lot of cases, and then, you know, we have cables and things like that. So really, we don't have a ton of gear. I mean, almost everything we own, especially what we use on a shoot, can fit on this cart, and that's kind of our thing. You know, we want to be able to roll into a location with.
Sorry, someone's ringing our doorbell.
You gonna check the doorbell?
Yeah.
It's the front. Let me flip you around. So, yeah, you know, we can fit it all on one cart, and that's kind of our creed, is that if it doesn't do that, then it's either it's too big a job for us, or we have help and we can figure that out. It means there's more money than we know what to do with, and that's not a bad thing in itself. So I mean, I'd recommend investing in a camera, because that's just, you need to learn how that works and kind of be able to make your style based on that camera. If you're going to do camera-based work, if you're a sound person, then replace that with whatever core piece of gear that is, a recorder, a microphone. But for us, you know, what informs that is client demand. I mean, that's kind of the theme of our whole business is, you know, we push in certain directions that we want to make work in to a certain degree, but most of what, you know, we respond to is if clients are clamoring for drone videos, which has become a thing more recently. We buy a drone. I got my FAA license very recently, and that's what clients want. They need more of that kind of stuff, and it's worth doing. You know, taking the test with the FAA and such. Gimbals, we got a gimbal, but like no one was dying for it. We had like a period of time where we were doing more videos for a home builder, and they needed it, but then those videos kind of sloped off. So now we're trying to look for a way to get rid of that gimbal. So we kept the box. We'll sell it. It's a life cycle. So yeah, but I don't know, cameras, lenses, you can't really go wrong with those. Someone said that the doorbell sounded like a horror movie. It's intentional. That thing has like it's a little thing from Amazon. It's got 37 ringtones. Most of them are full nursery rhyme songs that you can have play, I guess, if you want. I don't know who.
That might be more horrific.
Right, that would be even more horror show.
But did you already talk about the lights?
No, not yet. We just talked cameras and stuff.
Are you guys buying used?
Tyler hunts for deals. So sometimes we get things that are like open box.
Yeah.
But have we bought much? Some of our lenses were bought used off of eBay.
A lot of it's eBay, where they say, yeah, it's open box. That I have no problem with. Used lenses, sometimes they're good. It's hard when you can't really see the pictures, especially when they don't have actual photos of them. They just have like a stock photo and say it's got blemishes. I think I'm positive some things we bought, I can't say for sure, but is gray market, which means like it doesn't technically come with a warranty. I mean, it usually like it fell off the truck or something. I'm sure some of the stuff is from there.
Slider.
The slider was from Adorama. I don't know. A lot of it also, if you ever try it, there's a company called Greento, GREENTOE.com. And they're a funny company where basically a lot of manufacturers and retailers like Adorama is one of them, and Amazon, you know, they can't legally publish a price lower than what the manufacturer says they can. They have the MSRP, manufacturer suggested retail price. But if you were ever able to reach out to the retailer and say, I know that camera's $6,000, I'll take it off your hands right now, brand new for $5,500. They're just happy to make a sale, and their cut was far, you know, they paid far less than that, so they're still making money. They'll usually let it go as long as it's not public information. So Greento.com, you tell them what you're willing to pay for something, they reach out to the retailer on your behalf, and usually you'll get it for about 10% less. So it's just an easy way to knock off 10%. It's worked with, like we bought a very nice Sennheiser microphone through them. and I think our headphones and our audio recorders, so most of our audio gear came from them for about 10% under market. Other than that, used stuff, yeah, you just kind of weigh whether it's worth it. And basically, if they have a return policy, I don't have much of an issue. But otherwise, I would be as scared to have something fail on a shoot in front of a client.
And I think we're a lot more comfortable with like something that, like a slider or something that's like a grip piece of gear than, a camera.
Than fine electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the lights.
Yeah. Does VCU, Sasha or John, have Aperture brand anything? That brand come up?
No.
No. I recommend it. And they started out, it's a Chinese company. And originally they were making some stuff that was good, but very lightweight. And I would not suggest it wasn't rental quality, which, is kind of like the equivalent of industrial or, professional grade in our industry. Basically, if it means it can be taken and handed to 100 different companies and come back in one piece, then it's good. So recently Aperture has been making stuff that I would qualify as rental grade, namely this light. It's called the 300D Mark II, if you ever look it up. And they make these killer LED kits that are super bright. They're single chip lights. So they have one hard LED source. It's not a softbox inherently. It's a single source. And then it has these mounts called a Bowens mount, which is a very old photography standard.
Like that 3 square mount.
3 chips. Yeah. Very old standard. So every company makes stuff for this mount. And so you can modify it with whatever you want. And that, we prefer that. We buy exclusively hard source lights, because you can start with a hard single source and then modify it to make it softer, but the inverse is not true. You can't take a RE Sky panel, or what do you guys have, the Gemini light panels at school, I know. You can't take that and make it really hard. You can kind of channel it with egg shells and stuff, or egg crates, but it's not the same. So these are good. They're really bright, and they're super strong and robust. They come with these big controlled ballasts, which converts the power from 120 volts. It's got sliders and effects, all the kind of things that the Gemini has. But for the lighted outputs, it's rivaling HMI lights, which are the old standard for filmmakers. But those are extremely volatile and hot and can be dangerous, and they cost about $6,000 to $10,000 a piece for the small ones. And then this comparatively is only $1,000 for the kit. And so it's still a lot of money for sure, but it's worth it for a light that has lasted us as long as it does. And so we have 3 of these, and that's what gets us through almost all of our projects. We'll rent lights occasionally, but we can put a softbox on one for the key light on a person's face, and then have another with this Fresnel behind them for the kicker, and then shoot the other one uncoated into a white card to be the bounce. And that's a perfect interview setup on most jobs. So we recommend Aperture.
Yeah. And also I remember early on how I kind of got to getting this light is this one has a clamp that actually mounts the box to the stand. And we were having this issue where we had, the electrical box dangling, and there was nowhere to put it, or the cords were too short for a long time, where it's just putting strain in all sorts of ways and making it difficult to work with. And so we've become very critical and very picky, I think, now about what we'll use and won't use, because we've seen what happens on a job when you're trying to rig a light onto an arm and the cord's just not even long enough to do that.
Right. Yeah. So much of this is just figuring out, I think I told this to some other class, which was, figuring out where your pain points are with your equipment. And if you can, replace them. If it's something that consistently abrases and rubs you the wrong way when you're using it, man, I'm tired of having slack, see if there's a little doodad you can buy or rig yourself that'll hold that together, and get rid of that. So that's been our whole, because we shoot so much and do so many projects and such turnover that we have a lot of opportunity to feel that out. And so that's an important part of it. I'm trying to keep an eye on our time. I know we're about 7 to 1, and this is over in 25 minutes. So I'll kind of go through.
Yeah, we'll just do audio, and then we'll go answer some questions.
Some more questions. Audio is a whole world unto itself, and as Dana knows,
Yes,
it often gets neglected as.
Yes, I was.
What's that?
I think someone's accidentally unmuted.
Oh, gotcha. It often gets neglected. It's an entire half of the production, and yet it usually only has 1 or 2 people on set if it's a smaller job, as opposed to the entire camera department plus a cinematographer who's the darling of the set. So So sound is important, and honestly, working with someone like Dana is a gift, because we kind of get to focus on it as much as we do our camera things, and that's what I think elevates our productions. Just gear wise, just so you know, it's, you know, we recommend buying these kind of microphone boom poles if you can invest in them, that have the wire inside, just less management. You know, you plug in it with the short included one at the top, has an output at the bottom, so that's one less cable you need to manage. You know, you just have to connect it to your mixer. We use Zoom stuff. I know you guys are all about Zoom, and Zoom is definitely what I love. I think they do 95 to 105 more than the Sound Devices products, which Sound Devices is like the Aries and Red brands of Sound World, but Zoom does it all as well as, if not better than them, and costs fractional amounts of the price. I like those. Sennheiser microphones are good. Also Rode, R-O-D-E. Well, it's R and then the O is some weird symbol, but it's R-O-D-E. They make wonderful microphones that are cheap. If you all ever, anything they make is good, and I think holds up against the German brand Sennheiser. We've had this as maybe this now is our oldest piece of equipment, honestly, our NTG3. This was our first microphone, and we still have it. It's bulletproof, water, you know, like you can't hurt this thing.
We had to have it maintenance once, but
No,
it
that
was,
was the Sennheiser.
oh, that was the other one?
Yeah, the other one. So
Okay.
this one you really can't hurt. Sennheiser, this one, you know, this is a shotgun mic, good for outdoors. If there's not a ceiling above the shotgun, then it's good. But the problem with these shotgun microphones is that they tend to capture the reflections of voices. So if you're speaking here and you're in an office and there's a drop ceiling, you'll catch the echo a little bit worse on this. So to counter that, we bought this little guy, which is called the MKH50, and it's a shorter microphone designed for indoor spot. It's called spot dialogue use, and it creates a little bubble, and it's exactly what you need. But outdoors, it might be, you know, overtaken by the sounds of the wild, whatever. So anyway, that sound, again, I'm sorry to do it in injustice, as it always has suffered by talking about it so briefly, but I know there's other things to talk about. Since, we have a drone.
Did you want to talk about tentacles?
Oh, tentacles. Yeah. I guess we should mention these. These are very fun, and it's a new piece of technology relatively. You know, the old standard for synchronizing your audio to your video, if you're doing separate systems, which a lot of people do in film, is the clapper board. And so you make sure the camera's rolling, you see the clap, the sound spikes in your audio track, you line up the visual moment with the spike, you're good for that take. When we roll an entire 10-hour production day of on-site filming where we're running around like a corporate headquarters or some other institution, and we don't have time to do that if we're trying to catch a moment where someone says something and we want to be rolling, and Dana's trying to track it with a microphone.
A lot of what we shoot is documentary in style, so you're not going to have that opportunity.
You just don't have a free person to clap every time. These little boxes called Tentacle, like an octopus, Tentacle Sync, S-Y-N-C. All they do is generate time code. And so this box, our main recorder, Dana, who's usually our sound person, will synchronize these boxes. You plug them into the back at the beginning of the day, and then they all have the same time code, which is just a running counter of time to the frame, accurate, generated by the main box. These all sync up to that. And then you attach these to each of your cameras through anything, really. We use the microphone output, little 3.5 millimeter aux jack, goes into the scratch track port on all of our C200s. And what it does is it feeds a signal to those cameras that is baked into an audio track. It records it as noise, and it just sounds like a horrible screeching sound. But when you load that into the computer, say we had 3 cameras and Dana rolling audio on his unit, when you load all 4 of those sources into the computer, the system instantly recognizes that screeching sound as information and syncs them all up instantly. It's instant. It's much faster than doing like pluralize, where you let the computer try to guess what it heard and where it heard it and sync those up. It's instantaneous, and again, it's frame accurate for the whole day. So these have saved us mountains of time, and we don't even have to bother with things like clapping or, you know, having our subjects clap in front of their face to synchronize interviews. So Tentacle Syncs, very useful if you ever do stuff like this.
Yeah, and price point wise, what were those?
It's still niche technology, so it's a little expensive. I think each one of those is about $200, each little thing, and it comes with a kit, some cables, but it's paid for itself 10 times over based on how much time it saved us and having our crew member do that. So anyway, I kind of want to make sure we answer other questions. People are always offline with us if they have gear questions, but anything right now, watch out, Marge is behind you. Cat. Any questions about this before we go back to the questions you emailed us? No. Looks good.
Hold on, pull up the chat window. Yep, no, looks good.
Cat.
All right, so Sasha, we're gonna switch back over to the other camera. So I'm gonna
Okay.
go off of this guy.
Okay, sounds good.
And then just close that door if you could. Cool. Our multicam system's working pretty well. I'm happy.
Yeah.
All right. So sorry, let's go through some of these questions. Lifestyle, people asked about that. It is our full-time job. We pay ourselves a salary, and that's a big part of what kind of makes it feel like a more sustainable job is, jobs come and go. It's certainly not always even. We hope it is, but we pay ourselves a salary regardless. And, when we can take a raise, we take a raise. And when we can't, we can't, we just leave it where it is. But that's important to think of yourself as having a monthly budget, even though you technically could pay yourself whatever you wanted, whenever you want. There's tax implications to that, and Janelle can talk about those, but
yeah, it's kind of like the idea of like there's some salespeople who work on a commission, and like I've heard from seasoned salespeople say that they always laugh when they see the new salesperson come in and they make their first sale, and the next week they come in with their Tesla.
They just bought an $80,000 car with their first big job.
Just like sales and this, it's an ebb and a flow sort of like sometimes it rains. When it rains, it pours, with work, and you'll be like swimming in it. But then other times it's very dry, and especially usually like around the holidays, it's very quiet just because no one's in the office. And then maybe like mid-January, people start being like, oh, like what are we doing this year? And they'll start reaching out again. So yeah, you kind of have to set yourself up well to handle that. But lifestyle wise, like, I think we're pretty comfortable. It is a lot of weekends and late nights. Like when you're really busy, like you just kind of make it work. Cause you just don't know, like, I think this is like maybe typical business ownership. You're like, I'm going to take it while it's coming sort of thing. And so sometimes we'll, extend our hours during the week to make that happen. But then, last year, we probably in total took about like 5 weeks off from work because we got married. We went on a couple of vacations. We went out of town for the holidays. So like, we did work lots of weekends in there. So it probably honestly evened out overall to like what someone with a 40-hour work week and 2 weeks paid vacation gets.
Yeah, it balances out, but it is, I guess it is possible, like we just bought a house on our salary. So, it is all doable if you want to do this full time. It just does take a lot of budgeting and time management.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is like, I think people say usually like the first 3 years, you're really setting up your business. And so that is just like going to be a lot more upfront work. And then after that, you kind of are figuring out the rhythm of how it goes and what your capacity is. And also building up a client base. So someone asked about additional research after graduating. And I think Tyler mentioned some of the technical stuff, but he could go a little more into that if you'd like. But I would say also like basic accounting, some tax prep, how to set up a payroll. Another production company, when we started our business, her word of advice was to start a payroll system right away. She was like, you just don't want to be dealing with it because you owe taxes a lot more frequently than you realize. And if you miss that check, they get very upset with you. So if you get a payroll software, we use a company called Patriot Software that's based out of Florida, who I've had a great experience with. They're really affordable. There's also like big names like Paychex and stuff, but they charge a bit more and I think are better when you have more employees. So we learned a lot of that sort of just like through research online ourselves, and then like talking to other people who own businesses and finding out like what they do and like what they wish they had done sooner. And then, also like their city and state taxes. Honestly, a lot of this stuff is like, if you miss it, they'll let you know for sure, because they want you to pay them. And so like, there was something I think I had to refigure out from like the very first year we became a company. Like I had put our start date like slightly wrong or something, because we switched our tax classification at one point. And so they came back to me and were like, hey, like now you owe $150 because your tax classification in 2018 was this, but it was this in 17, blah, blah, blah. So, so they'll come and just tell you what you need to do sometimes if like you overlooked something. But ultimately a CPA will be like your best friend when you start a business. Find someone who works with small businesses and can give you advice, because they'll answer all of your questions. They'll tell you exactly like tax structure wise, how they think you should set up your business based on like the number of people you work with and things like that. So we have a CPA we really like. If anyone does venture into making their own business, we can recommend him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that for sure when you do this. That's something you have to weigh. I mean, unless you can hire people from the outright who are going to manage all this, it gets very, it can get very stale. Oh, Sasha just asked, do you have a lawyer as well? We don't have a specific lawyer. We have the person that you recommended to us, but we've never paid a retainer. We haven't needed them yet, so it's good. I'm gonna try to, I want to make sure we get through all these. So anything we suggest you all getting a head start on in developing your profession? Networking. If you can meet anyone right now who can help you out, you know, who does something like this. I mean, whether it's people like us or other folks who are in the industry in any way, it's just good to meet people, be friends with them. We'll talk about this later. All of our work to the date and so far has been word of mouth. You know, we've never paid for an ad. We have a website and that's obviously essential, but you know, we've never put out advertising or even had to go, I don't know, whatever the equivalent of door to door is these days. So that's networking. We have a cat, it's destroying our expensive couch. I talked about project management. It's a huge part of it. File organization. Something that I know is very important is to everyone, no matter what field you go into within filmmaking, just consider, at least if you're going to do a business and market yourself, think of every trick and technique and skill you have, and you know, anything, like any little, yeah, like basically like tricks, like I'm really good at, you know, this like kind of slider shot that always looks good every time I do it, and I'm always happy with it. Think of those as things in a toolbox, because what we found is, especially when you get busy and when every client can't afford to pay you the rate to make a full bespoke product every time, sometimes you have to dip into your toolbox and kind of template it out. And even if you use it as a jumping off point, it can be very good to know, like, maybe this piece could use a couple interviews, but then also some of these kind of like portraits that we know we're good at, and then some aerial units. And then you can kind of piece together a project through blocks, as opposed to having to sit down and like write a new piece every time, because you'll end up sinking way too much money into these projects in time when that's just not good business resource management. So just consider your toolbox in any regard when you are working. And then a huge deal for us and all of this is you have to develop a comfortability with discussing money and asking for it and saying no to it when there isn't enough of it. And so that's a huge deal. You know, you have to be able to do that. I mean, it's just, you have to become comfortable with the concept of discussing budgets, because it can get away from you if not.
And contracts like that, how Tyler mentioned earlier, that we and most of our contracts retain rights to footage, like that stuff is extremely important to start putting up front before you shoot anything, because like I think that might be one of the questions we get asked the most from clients that we have to say no to, is like after we've filmed everything and they like the footage and they're like happy with the final result, they say, great, like can you put all of it on a hard drive for me? And we have to be like, well, actually, no, like the contract did say that's not part of the deal. And then, you know, we can say, but if you still want it, this is how much that would cost. But there are some clients who like say that very upfront. They're like, you know, I want the rights to the footage, and then we can make the decision if we're okay with that or not before we even start the job.
And usually you should charge more for it, because you're saying when they own the footage, they are essentially denying you the ability to make any more money off of that footage, you know? So if they have the footage, then they don't have to come back to you ever again. They could find some other cut rate editor and then you're out. So it's valuable in and of itself. Yeah. Sometimes the footage is like, I don't know, you'll know when it is worthless. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with this weird interview we did. You can have it. Like, I'm not going to cut it again for you, whatever. So it's all kind of case by case, but I wanted to also point out something to everyone. It's a great resource that I've used called freelancersunion.org. So freelancers.
It in the chat.
What's a chat? There you go. Okay,
Hey, Tyler, could I make a request?
absolutely, John.
Because you've listed a lot of great resources. Is there any chance you could make like a cheat sheet? Because it went through really quickly before I could write everything down. But
I'm going to direct you to the recording that Dana's making, John.
oh yeah, there we go.
If anyone ever wants these resources, I honestly spout these things out like I'm a salesperson most of the time, so I can't even keep track of them. But I'll try to jot them down. But freelancers union's a good one. I mean, again, we don't have a lawyer, and I don't know what I am, but I'm not a lawyer. And yet I've written all of our contracts, and a lot of it's based on the template that Freelancers Union provides for free, because they're all about this kind of self-advocacy, since we don't have collective bargaining as freelancers, obviously. So you can use their template and really edit it, but it's a beautiful effort and site. So I'd recommend that. We pull a lot of stuff from them.
And some of that's also been developed over time. Like there's some stuff that we put in our contracts that's not going to be part of any sort of template, but it's protections we've realized we need because we've run into situations. And usually when those come up, we give the client the benefit of the doubt, and we just think, okay, next time we'll make sure we cover ourselves in this case. But we never like argue with the client over it in the moment.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I've gotten heated with a couple, but that's how it goes.
Also, in regards to gear, someone also was asking about software. We actually edit in Final Cut because we really like their organization tools because of the way that we shoot a lot of our footage. We used to use Premiere. We were having a lot of crash issues, honestly, with it.
Surprise.
Yeah. And then Tyler does a lot of the color in DaVinci.
Which is a fine editing program in and of itself, which is free, as you all probably know. So if you have to cut in anything, I'd say DaVinci. I don't like Adobe. I mean, I use After Effects a ton, and that's a big part of our business is that I know how to use After Effects. But since we're all Apple-based, Final Cut works really smooth on it. That's what they built it for. So think about that. I don't know. I made like my junior film was about two guys fighting over editing software. So whatever. I'd refer you to that to see my thoughts. You could read any article about those damn softwares.
But also we wanted to mention stock music. We use stock music in the majority of what we do, if not solely.
I don't know Beyonce's agent's rate number. Yeah.
But Tyler's really good at re-editing and retiming music so that it feels custom to the films that we're making. And like a lot of sites will give you what they call stems, and it's like parts of the song, and you can almost like recompose it a little bit to a degree. And so we highly recommend using stock music sites. Maybe you all have already learned about these, but things like Musicvine, Audio Jungle, Soundstripe, Artlist, that we can send a quick list of.
Oh yeah.
But they are really great resources. And I would say too, I know when I was teaching, I saw a lot of students using copyrighted music in their work, and you won't unfortunately be able to really use that as your portfolio when you graduate, because someone might come and give you a cease and desist.
Well, more likely than not,
yeah.
You'll post it on YouTube or Vimeo, and their little spiders will pull it down automatically. I don't think you'll ever hear from a lawyer, but it's just you run the risk of your piece getting flagged. So so I highly recommend using stock music, especially for things that you're really proud of, because then you can keep them online forever.
Yeah.
I want to get through these in the last 4 minutes. Let's see.
Lightning round.
I know, lightning round. People on our team, it's Janelle and I almost always, and then almost always Dana, because he's our sound guy. And if he ever leaves, we will probably fall apart. And then we'll usually have like a production assistant, just a general, someone who can help load equipment, make runs if we have to, and then occasional hair and makeup. Hannah Perlman asks, are you planning on adding more people to your team in the future? It really is, it's like construction. I mean, a lot of this kind of has parallels with how constructions would run a job. We build the team for the project and for the budget. So if we can afford a team of 10 and need it and truly need to divert the funds for it, then we would never shy away from hiring that. But often our clients need like the sometimes 2, but usually 3 to 5 person team, and that's enough. Hair and makeup is usually a person worth bringing to if you're doing a lot of interviews, just because you really don't appreciate how busted people can look or how like moist they can be or how their hair can be off that day until you are looking at it in the color correction suite and you have to de-shine them and fix everything that you see going on here. So it's worth it. It's worth the 450 bucks. Thank you, Ruben. Rates are very variable, and still the hardest part of our business, I think, is establishing the budget for the project and knowing what's right and what's wrong. Just to give you rates, like we individually have charged anywhere from 500 a day to 3,000 a day for our time for a 10-hour production day of work. So obviously that represents the earliest and some of the best of times. But a lot of what we do with budgeting is colloquially beer, wine, champagne, where, I mean, the most important thing you need to do is have a discussion with your client first off, before you talk about money. Get all the details you can from them. Sometimes they have a lot, sometimes they know exactly what they want or think they know what they want. And sometimes they're looking for you to stock, lock, and barrel and produce the whole thing. In all those cases, you gather all those details, and then we always ask. We used to think it wasn't right, but now we make it a part of our process to ask them, is there a number you're working with? Or is there a number we can help you hit with this? You know, whatever. Because most of these people, unless you're dealing with the CEO themselves, which is a wonderful thing because they can pull the trigger on anything, you're usually dealing with someone who answers to someone and is responsible for some stewardship of a budget that they're not totally in control of. So they have numbers that are in their head that they won't share unless you ask. Once they share that, it kind of engenders another conversation about, well, so based on what you talked about, we can do that, or there's no way we can do that. And that's when you kind of chop it and block it until it fits into that number. So if they say we only have $5,000, you just have to know that, like, 2 weeks of on location shooting out of the country is just, it's off the table. But maybe we can do something with 2 days of controlled in location or in studio shooting, and that'll work. So our rates flux a little bit based on that. Also, if it's a for-profit or a nonprofit company, we can cut deals there. It's very malleable. I think a lot of other companies, especially ad agencies, might not be malleable. But that's how we've been able to adapt. So again, I want to try to get through more of these. I know we're coming up on our time.
I was going to ask Sasha, because I know we're about to run out of time. Do you want us to keep going and people can stay if they want, or should we wrap it up?
Yeah, well, I mean, for my class, we're just here so we can keep going. Liz's students may have to duck out. I'll let her speak to that, but I'm happy to keep going as long as you all want.
Yeah, we're about halfway done with these questions, and we'll try to be quick on them, but people.
So a quick question, just a clarification on the rates, because I feel like a lot of it comes with experience.
Mhm.
So I think that's something that really overwhelms